I'm Aaron Webster. I am, I've got a few roles. I'm a player care lead at Burton Albion Football Club. I'm an ex-professional footballer for Burton Albion, played for 17 years, played nearly 600 games for the club. I've worked at the Community Trust previously, but now my main role is player care. So that entails just looking after the boys in our academy from under 9s to under 18s. It's like a football social worker, really. Joint with education with James Enza, I lead the life skills program as well, because obviously we want the young boys to develop, come through the age groups to eventually play on this pitch in the first team, but knowing the percentages of how many lads actually make it, and so education is really important. So we've got a real kind of variety of life skills that we deliver to our boys across the age groups.
So let's go right back to before you got involved in coaching, so your playing days. How did all that come about? How did you start playing football?
It started in the living room at home, ornaments smashed, broken. Just as a young boy, there was a real interest in football. I've got several uncles who, but they're all Leeds fans, so they were really keen on football. Mum's a Man United fan, so it's weird that I've turned out to be a Liverpool fan. But just from a young age, just whether it's in the garden, living room, going in the car park at the back of our house, and that's where the kind of journey started. Not knowing then, because it was just the love of this thing, what was round and you could kick around. But now I obviously look back on kind of how I became a professional footballer. It was from just repetition, but not knowing it. I would always say, looking back, that's what helped me become a professional, because I was doing it all the time just for the love of it. So started in the living room, school teams, playing for Derby as a young boy, played for Coventry City between 14 and 16 years old. And that's when, again, looking back, I'll always reference my own kind of life experiences. That was the first taste of rejection. So even compared to my role now, compared to me as a 16-year-old at Coventry getting told I weren't good enough, this is why I love being in the place I am today, because people need support. Back then it was just, we think you've done well, you're not good enough, and you just left, kind of a thing. So player care, that's another big part of it. When lads do get released, because it sadly is a part of the process, there's a duty of aftercare for them after. So that's probably kind of the first time what I really resonate with in doing my role today.
As a young black athlete growing up, do you feel like you faced any challenges growing up?
I think so. As a young boy, another reason why, obviously I've just mentioned I support Liverpool, but I love John Barnes. Even though born in Derby, there could have been Derby's players, black players who I'd resonate with, but just, I don't know if it, because Liverpool was the biggest club in England at the time and always on TV. But when I saw him play, I just thought, wow, I want to be like him. I was left-footed like him, both played left midfield, and he was just a real idol for me. So he just caught my eye. And but from my own experiences, I think so. I think luckily I was strong enough to deal with certain things, stigmas, stereotypes, where them stereotypes were probably more accepted back then, very different to society today. So even though I had broad shoulders and I could accept things, it's not to say that I was upset at times or angry. So times have changed. People are trying to make a difference more now, which is great. But I think we should still drive through with that education.
The role that you've got at the moment, was that always something that was in the back of your mind when you were coming to the end of your playing days?
When I finished playing football, this was nearly 10 years ago, and I don't think roles like player care were around there. It's only quite new in the last 2 or 3 years that the Premier League are really pushing it forward and saying the young footballers need that support and that help. So initially, as a player, you kind of think it's never going to last. Even when I got into my 30s, kind of a thing, you take it for granted a little bit. You've done it for so long, it's the normal, it's normality, and then all of a sudden, playing days come to an end, and coaching was one for me where I felt like that's what I wanted to do. bearing in mind I did open a bar in Burton after I finished playing, and did that for a couple of years. But again, that hit home again. Why am I managing a bar here when I've been in football for so long? I need to give something back to, well, the football club who helped me to have a football career, but also the young boys coming through the ranks. So that led me coming back to the community trust, and now that's kind of followed into me working for the academy. So I always thought it might be coach, manager, but obviously with this role, it really resonates with me, because just mentioning when I got released, and I know how heartbreaking it is, and even at times I'll always use my own experiences like I've touched on, but going on trial to so many clubs when I was here as a young player doing really well, I'd go to these clubs, big clubs, and there wasn't really a welcome or an arm around you. So looking back, I didn't really do well on these trials. So every time I came back to Burton after a failed trial, I'd always make sure if there was a trialist or a new signing coming, I would make a beeline for them straight away, just to make them feel part of the place, because if that's going to make him feel better and play better, it's going to help the club I represent and I love. And it's player care. I was doing player care before I was actually had it as a job.
You mentioned finishing football, having a bit of time to yourself, opening a bar in Burton, then something triggered in your head to think, why don't I go back to Burton? Why didn't you do that straight away? Was there a barrier there stopping you? What was it?
I think there was a couple of barriers. I'll be honest enough to say there was probably a little bit of bitterness towards Burton Albion. Again, it was a conversation which was negative. I didn't get a new contract. So similar to when I was 16 playing for Coventry, I had so many years of good conversations. You've done well, so you're going to the next age group. And yeah, at 16, my world came tumbling down, because it was the first time I was told I wasn't good enough for something in football, in something that I love. So it's probably similar to being at Burton Albion. I played for the club for 17 years, 591 appearances. So to hear that, even though I knew it was coming because I was getting older and slower, but it still hurt, even at that age, kind of a thing. So in my mind, I felt like I needed to prove to people that I could do something else other than football. So opening a bar and refurbing it from a bag of dust into a plush bar with screens and hundreds of people coming throughout the week, it was a real achievement. But over time, I always look back at football and just thought, being a footballer, in them days, I could take my kids to school, I could pick them up, I could read them a book before bed. Running a bar and managing people, I couldn't do that.
In terms of black players, black coaches, black managers being involved in football now, you've been in football long enough to see probably what it was like at the start and the barriers that have been broken down since. Just talk a little bit about that.
So I was born in 1980, so going back years and years ago, I used to watch games where John Barnes is kicking a banana off the pitch, and but I was young. I was too young to know what that meant at the time. Further educating myself over the years and going through little bits of myself while I was playing, whether it's against opponents or fans in the crowd. It just opened my eyes more. And even some of them stereotypes, what I mentioned before, as a young black footballer trying to make it, like I said, it was normal at times. Now I'm older and I know more, and there's a lot more awareness. I look back and still think, bloody hell, it was sad. So now I obviously buzz off being in a privileged position now to be in the role I am, to just promote further awareness, help educate people. And as human beings, we can be horrible to each other, can't we? We judge, we discriminate, and I like being in a position where it's a position to support people and help fight and make diversity be kind of an area where people accept it more and know a lot more about it.
What advice would you give to people that are out there that might be scared of running into one of these barriers, might be scared of rejection?
There's barriers in loads of different walks of life. My advice would be to speak, talk to people, parents, friends, partners. Like I said, I hope you can tell that I'm really privileged, and I'm still overwhelmed that I get to be in the role I am today. But yeah, just talk to people if you ever need support. And there's gonna be life's up and down. There's highs, there's lows as well. But just in them lows, never be on your own. Don't hold things yourself, because then things can become a lot more difficult.